Because knowledge is a necessary evil for us, which puts us into two opposite and equal polarization of this is this and this is that. And we go on fluctuating in between in ignorance. Thus, ignorance, the thought of ignorance, is created by knowledge itself. If there was no sense of knowledge, there wouldn't have been any sense of ignorance. So ignorance is an antithesis to knowledge. And why knowledge is necessary evil? Because knowledge is always coming from a viewpoint and establishing a viewpoint. Every viewpoint is different. And as every difference adds to the ignorance or incomplete understanding of something, thus knowledge is the other name of ignorance. That is why in the text Shiva Sutra, Shiva called knowledge to be bondage. Because knowledge is a verb that binds a subject and object in its two sides. The truth is in the silence of mind, which is non-perception. Knowledge assures ego identity. As the proverb is there in English, a man is what he thinks. Of course, a woman also what she thinks. But this thinking is continuously changing. Thus, a man or a woman or a human being is continuously changing in accordance with knowledge. This changefulness itself is the illusion and cause of all ignorance. Thus, knowledge is ignorance. Tantra, which is the ultimate outcome and essence of the Yogacara or the yoga philosophy, we cannot call basically yoga as philosophy because it's practical. But still, the theory of yoga is regarded as philosophy. What is difference between truth and philosophy? Truth is the assumed end of our knowledge or the definition of reality. But because reality is not constant, it's continuously changing, changeful, that is why truth also becomes changeful. So when truth becomes changeful, it becomes philosophy. Philosophy is love for knowledge. In other ways, in how many views you can try to find out the truth is that many philosophies appear in human mind. But what do we do if knowledge is ignorance? Suppose whatever I am saying, from my side, it's my experience I am expressing in words, but what is reaching to you is not the experience, but the words. If the words somewhere match with your experience, then you get the truth of it. And if it doesn't match with your experience, because experiences are varied, then it is a knowledge and information to you. And thus, it's your choice to accept that philosophy or not. We think that if we meet truth, we will have to accept it, or our mind will turn to a state that there will be nothing that I cannot accept it. But that we are born and that we will die and that we are living a life which is a moving truth, but it's constant from each one of us, from our moment of birth till the moment of death. This moving phase of life is the only reality that enables us to see any other reality from the viewpoint of this life. If you were not born, who would have searched for truth? And the moment you are born, you are conditioned by the conditionings of cosmic evolution, to earth evolution, to evolution of life, to evolution of human being, to evolution of human perception. It's a continuously evolving process. It's continuously a changeful process. It's never stagnant. It's never stopped. It will stop in death. There are philosophies after death. There are philosophy of rebirth. It will become truth to you when you experience it. If you don't experience it, it is an information to you. If you believe in it, then it is your philosophy. But until and unless you experience it, it's not your truth. So from birth till death, a continuity of consciousness is flowing, which is changing through the 5 elements of earth as body, water as sensations and emotions, fire as mind, and including all thoughts and thoughtlessness equally, judgment or intellect as assertion of a thought more important than another thought, or the faculty of decision making, or recognizing the truth through analysis, and thereby establishing the ego identity. So consciousness is flowing through these 5 faculties. Many philosophers have seen these faculties as different and separate. and vertical. Many other philosophers have seen it as a continuity. That the physical consciousness itself transmutes into sensory or emotional consciousness, and the emotional or sensory consciousness turns itself into mind consciousness, and the mind consciousness itself gets defined as intellect or judgmental consciousness. And from there, assertion comes to the core of the viewpoint, which is self. When you go into deep sleep, what is the self? When you are in deep sleep, do you know you are sleeping? If you don't know you are sleeping when you are in deep sleep, how do you know what is the experience of it? Can anybody reflect on this?
Hey, Baba. I feel like...
Baba, may I speak something on this regard?
Yeah. Yes. Who is it? Please tell your name.
Partha Chatterjee, I'm speaking.
Sir.
Baba. While we are sleeping, the body is still awake. Who sleeps then? There is blood circulation, love of heart, and breathing. We breathe out and in. So body is still awake. Who sleeps then?
My question is, when you were having a deep sleep, were you aware of your breathing going on, of your heartbeat going on, your body is alive? You don't know?
No.
So stand there first. We're standing on experience.
Baba, may I speak?
Yes.
Nika. I think like after you wake up, you have still kind of you know that you were in deep sleep after waking up.
Yeah. So recognizing deep sleep is in waking up. So thus knowledge is dependent on the opposite faculty. Not in itself. When you can objectify something, then it comes to your knowledge. When you witnessed yourself from the view of awakened state, your mind analyzed what was there in the sleep. You came in that state, there was nothing because you don't remember anything. So from that, as an antithesis, you derive from your known definition of deep sleep that you were in deep sleep because there is no knowledge about it in you. The knowledge is created after awakening, isn't it? Partha?
Yes,
so
sir.
Which one is the truth? Your view of reality where you are not, or your view of reality when you were there? Which is more logical? Which is a more sustainable truth? Partho, can you think when you were not born, how was this world?
No, Baba.
So where from you thought that your body was awake? From the informations
Exactly.
of others that you were sleeping. To your witness, there was a time period when you don't know anything.
Exactly.
Exactly like that is when we are in Samadhi. In Samadhi, there is nothing. To come down to this point of there is nothing, we have to come down through many things and everything that we have acquired. Elimination is a bigger process than the reality itself. And that is done by the mind. That is how, after speaking volumes and volumes of knowledge, Vedanta will come at the end, Abang Manasa Gocharam. It's not a matter of speech and mind. Now the question will come, who was speaking? What bullshit he was speaking? Or what bullshit she was speaking? If it is not a matter of speech and mind. So at the end of Vedanta, Vedanta comes to a conclusion of ignorance. It's only an intellectual satisfaction or mind management happened for a temporary time. But the ultimate truth is cannot be spoken and cannot be understood by mind. So why should we pursue a truth? By mind and speech, which is not a matter of mind and speech. How contradictory is this knowledge and this philosophy? Think about it. Most of our knowledges we are taking them for granted as truth. When the premise of the knowledge is fictitious. There was no identity in the deep sleep. There is no identity in the Samadhi. Now today, I will speak about Samadhi from my experience, though it will reach you as an information of a state of somebody's experience, which is ultimately create a greater ignorance in you. Because you will start weaving all the probabilities in your thought process to understand which is unthinkable. I know Lalita Ma is enjoying like anything. And as many ways you will think, you can write multiple volumes on that. All are speculations. Until and unless you experience it. Experience is the root of knowledge. Thought is developed upon it. So thus, thoughts can make you apprehend but not reach any truth. There are 3 stages of Samadhi. First, I will explain the term Samadhi. Samadhi is translated as transcendence. Everything in this world of differences are polarized among 2 equal and opposite poles. And from their endless probabilities will spot up to create all knowledge. This polarization is in the very mass structure of it. Forget about our mind. Think of the Mother Earth that we are living in, part and parcel of it. Its North Pole and South Pole has polarized it in a fashion that the movement of the earth has a wobble, and this wobble has created a life. Think of it. So the root cause of life is in the frequency of the polarization of earth. The same polarization has evolved in you in your Sahasrara and Muladhara, the 2 opposite ends of the 7 chakras. This polarization has become the basic character of every cell, living cell of your body pulsating. The protoplasmic consciousness, every cell, the pulsation from the nucleus to the periphery of the cell, and from the periphery of the cell to the nucleus. This protoplasmic consciousness has created the organs which are activating, bouncing in a bigger mass pulsation. That has become our breathing. That has become our movement. And from there, it created our thoughts of experiences. So if we can go to the core of this pulsation, we can go to the core of the universe, from where the universe exploded out. This journey to going to the core is dissolving thoughts into experience. This dissolving thoughts into experience is the process of Kriya Yoga. Hatha Yoga or Yama Niyama Asana Pranayama or restraint and disciplines, yogic postures and breathings. This is physical. That practice will enable one to go to the subtler layer of experience, the neurological structure of our being. from where the feelings came. And because of the feelings, we are alive. When we are going to feel it, we can even feel no thought. That feeling no thought is the moment of Samadhi. Why Samadhi? Sama means equal. Odhi means existence. I equal or parallel existence. Existence of two equal and opposite at the same time, which in philosophy is mundane and spiritual. If you see the total polarization, you will find it's not two. It's the expansion of the same consciousness in a character of pulsation, which is from the periphery to the center and center to the periphery. When this periphery to the center and center to the periphery is equalized in your experience by the technique of Kriya Yoga, standing on Hatha Yoga, you go into a feeling of wearing off all thoughts, entering non-perception. So it starts with the activation in the body, in the chakras, finally in the brain, working with the total central nervous system. So that is called Kriya or Yoga. Then it takes you to a state of contemplation through the process of concentration created by the activation of yoga. So where you go into a state of contemplation, which is a witness, witnessing itself. How you are observing your own state of being. What is a subtle intellectual duality? That I am one who is observing, I'm one who is observed. Till the duality persists. Very subtle. Because every single point of innumerable probable points in the total polarization, any point you take, there another polarization will be created. Astounding. This polarization, when becomes still, it is equated, there's no fluctuation, then it is Samadhi. The state of being in silence of the spanda. So that is transcendence. So yoga, dhyan or meditation, and samadhi. Yoga, the activation, leads to the concentration that ends up in contemplation, and the contemplation can carry on for some time until and unless your witness consciousness is tired enough to wear out. That is the silence of mind. So thus, you cannot escape the manyness. You have to pass through the manyness. If you think you can escape the manyness, then truth will be like your toilet when you deadly need it. It's a compartmentalized reality. It's not. It's everything. Again, the sense of truth is also a definition of mind. The mind that cannot hold the truth, as Abang Manuso Gocharam, as said by Vedanta, and is not a matter of speech because it cannot be the truth cannot be translated into words. Then what bullshit we are talking so long and killing our time in almost late night in India and midday in US and evening in Europe. Why we are indifferent? Why we are caring so much with our mind and speech, if it is not a matter of mind and speech? And if it is not a matter of mind and speech, then what it is? Thus, philosophy is self-contradictory to itself, because perception trying to express or impress or explain non-perception. Till we will try. Till we will try. Still. So, when in this contemplation the mind comes to the being, but the being is self, this self-recognition is there, but a recognition of no other fact connected to self is there. It's like you are entering the deep sleep. You are falling asleep. You are forgetting who you are. You take, before going into deep sleep, your body takes a big breath, long breath, like a sigh. Why? It reaches you to a sense of expansiveness that makes our breath big. So if we can take long breath and long inhale and exhale, we will also feel expanded. Think of it. This expansiveness of thought in the dual understand or dual view of science, it's this breathing process is outbursting the flow of energy from your body, which is your heat. As in Chinese, we call it qi or ki. In India, we call it shakti. Nearest, the translation is energy. So this energy character is to flow out in frequencies. Kirlian photography takes a photograph of it nowadays. Photograph of your aura. So when it is expanding from your body, when any energy is moving, of course, it's flow of electrons, because there cannot be energy as a structure without flow of electrons. So in Kriya Yoga, you are activating this flow of electrons to create your psychic space, this expansion. And if you concentrate there, those who practice will know, those who have trained in the 5 elemental meditation among my disciples and students, they know, they've experienced that a sense, the moment I come to the state of mind from sensation, the pure mind is not thinking anything because it's possessed in observing its expansion and the momentum of the expansion, the speed of the expansion. If you carry on witnessing the speed of expansion, your electron particles will flow and connect to other electron particles flowing around you and slowly catching the ethereal frequency of the ether, and thus it will flow from you beyond this earth, beyond the solar system, beyond the stellar system, till the end of the universe. This expansion is experienced because everything is connected, nothing is different. In one truth of consciousness, everything is in this consciousness. How is it? Just like, suppose we are all fishes in an aquarium. So one goldfish waved its tail and everybody got a splash of it. So if you can feel the consciousness that is inside and outside expanded till the end of the universe, every pulsation of this existence will be felt, experienced by the yogi. This experience of expansion is known as Brahma Jnana, or the experience of the great expanse in our philosophy and theory. This is a state where there is an imaginary limitation of yourself, continuously changing and expanding. It's like running after the horizon. The horizon remains as distant from you as it was always. That expansion is Brahmanubhuti, or the feeling of the great expanse. This is the start of the Samadhi, because in this great expanse, form and definitions of differences of forms dissolve in one consciousness, but still it is not stilled. It's in movement, it's dynamic, it's expansive, it's continuously expanding. That is how the word in Sanskrit, Brahman, is created from the verb root of brin, means expanse, to expand. And with a suffix called a monich. Monich suffix makes the brin to Brahman a verb to a noun, a verb noun. What is the application of the monich pratyay or monich prefix? Monich means position. Position is constant. It's asserting the judgment. So the suffix monich is assertion of the judgment of its continuity. It's its present tense, its present continuous tense, it's carrying on. This carrying on will also have a change. If one can sit longer and go on witnessing it, that only your samskar or your spiritual inbuilt will allow you through practice. Those who entered it for a little while and came back, I have experienced it. It's endless expansion. For them, it is endless expansion. It is eternity. Some will carry on further till it reaches the periphery of the cosmic universe. From there, it will return by the law of every action. There is equal and opposite reaction. So when it will come returning back, you will start feeling that what you were so long feeling of a microcosmic expansion will become just the opposite of a microcosmic involution. It will start concentrating to the center. This is still the theory of Big Crunch. The macrocosmic expansion is the theory of the Big Bang. This microcosmic contraction opposite to the expansion is also termed into another Sanskrit word called Krishna. Pushpa, your Krishna is sucking up. So Krishna is also a verb noun, come from the root of the verb krish, means to attract or pull. So when the center pulls the circumference, it is Krishna. Again, manish pratyay with krish, or the asserting suffix that it is an endless pool. But no pool is endless. If you can wait, then it has pulled to the center, and now there is no circumference. And because there is no circumference, there is no center. Whose center? Center is also a relative thought faculty, with standing on the sense of space in dimension. Now, there's no dimension in that space because the expansion has been contracted. So when it is contracted, that is the moment of stillness of the self. There, the self is no more active. In expansion, it was active. In contraction also, it was active. But when it is in the process of contraction, the witness consciousness has weared out by witnessing itself. The witness witnessing itself dissolves itself. This point of dissolution is kaivalya, or onlyness. What is onlyness? The word itself trying to express or define the situation. It's nothing else but your being. But here, your being cannot also be said, because the being itself is there without mind or ear or anything it is connected to. This is the threshold of entering deep sleep. So this is called Keval, only. The onlyness of being, the singularity of being, the constant nature, the stillness of being. But this is also not constant. If you can keep your awareness still alive, witnessing itself in the stillness, soon the witness consciousness will wither away and it will dissolve into the unknown. This is Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a Samadhi free from all alternatives. This is equal to the deep sleep state. So polarization in expansion equated, polarization in stillness equated, onlyness equated, and polarization not found, lost. I call it the void. I've translated Nirvikalpa Samadhi as the void. It's not intellectual, it's experiential. But these distinctions are there because our knowledge is standing on differences and it can recognize differences. So there will be, of course, differences among Brahmagyanis, various stages of Brahmagyanis, as Vedanta classifies them as Brahmana, Brahmagya, Brahmavid, Brahmishta. 4 stages. 5 stages because basically. Brahman, one who knows the theory of the great expanse and is trying to live in it. Brahme ayana karati, yah sa brahmana, one who resides or lives in this great expanse is Brahmana. Just wearing a sacred thread and being a priest is not a Brahmana. A true Brahman is one who is living in this expansiveness. The second is Brahmagyan, one who in the process of living in this expansiveness, continuing, practicing, repeating this experience, knows what it means, what is meant by the great expanse. It's called Brahmagya. Then Brahmavid, that the knowledge of the Brahman is no more my knowledge or a matter separate from me. It's no more objectified. It has become one as me. So that where Vedanta says, Brahmavid, Brahmaiva Bhavati, one who is Brahmavid, one who has become one with the great expanse, has become the great expanse. And then absolute realization of it comes to one who is called Brahmishta, or the absolute realizer of the great expanse. So one who has gone to the end of the great expanse. It's not everybody has gone to the end of the great expanse. So one who has gone to the end of the great expanse has a greater experience or a different experience, a greater knowledge or a different knowledge than one who is just residing in the expanse and is not able to manage it still now. This is how the Vedic sage Yagnavalkya in the court of King Janaka. King Janaka was a king who later became an Avadhuta by practice of yoga and taking refuge of sage Ashtavakra. That's a different story. So Janaka was the king of Mithila. It is called Treta Yuga, or you will better know Janaka as he is known in the society of devotees as father-in-law of Sri Ramachandra. Ma Sita's father is King Janaka. He is an absolute realizer. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, one of the greatest realizers of the last century, used to continuously give Janaka as an example in his teaching as the ultimate realizer. So in court of Janaka, Janaka used to host big Vedic and Vedantic seminars. And from there, the best researchers or the texts were coded under Vedanta or Upanishad. So in the court of Janaka, Yagnavalkya was propounding this theory of Brahman, and everybody was clapping. Maybe they didn't clap, they said other exclamatory things. Think of today, we will clap. Suddenly a woman came up, a yogini called Gargi, and said, Yagnavalkya, you are talking. Where are you? You are talking about that great expanse. Where are you? He said, I am in Bhuloka, means in the space of art. Okay, Yagnavalkya, where is the space of art? In Bhuvadaloka. Bhuvadaloka is what? The cosmic universe. Within the planetary functions. Earth is among other planets, the space of planets. Where is that? That's in the greatest space of energy. Where is that greatest space of energy? And ultimately, Yagnavalkya came to Brahmaloka, or the space of the great expanse. And Gargi asked a question, where is this space of the great expanse situated, Yagnavalkya? Yagnavalkya didn't know more than that, because he's a doctrinated knower. He has collected information and analyzing on information. He has no experience that was proved when he was asked about it. He was so angry because he could not answer it. He said, you woman, you are asking me such a question? Your head will fall on the ground. No interpretation in the text has been found that how her head will be on the ground, her head will fall. Whether the patriarchal philosophical society will cut off a woman's head because a woman has asked the question that the patriarch cannot answer. Or a woman is of a greater intellect, so falling of the head is falling of the intellect, you will not understand. Or Yagnavalkya doesn't understand himself how he can answer it. Gargi didn't ask anymore. She laughed and left the court. Why? Because Yagnavalkya is not aware enough to understand the question of Gargi. Gargi went, if you break this question, it will be coming to what is the definition holding as its reality. That you gave a Brahmavak or a word of truth, that Brahman is the ultimate truth. But Brahman is a verb word created out of a sense of activation or action. So Brahman is not free from action. So you are imagining this state is free from action. It's nishkriya. It's not nishkriya because it is recognized through a kriya dhatu or through an active verb root. So one who apprehended this word or who originated this word, his mind or her mind is not free from verb or action. And the moment there is a verb, one side is the subject and the other side is the object. Hello. How are you looking within the frame now? So it's also frame, it's also a limitation. Because that expands, if not a regular form, still it is a form. It's a form of energy. Otherwise, how it is expanding? Can anything expand which does not have a form? Answer. Think about it. Can anything expand which does not have a form or a limited space? If it does not have a limited space, how it is counted to be expanding? Because expansion is the continuous encompassing bigger and bigger space. So it has a movement, and the movement has a quality. The quality of encompassing more and more space. So the space, in the sense of the space, there is again a polarization of a limited space going into unlimited end. Thus, Brahman, the term, is not free from a form. So it is not Nirakara, it's Jyotir Akara. It's not without a form, because even it is seen as light, the expansiveness of light also has a limit, and thus it is a form. Check up your psychology to understand this, not just as information. So Gargi asked a very good question, that anything that moves needs a substratum consciousness to move on it. The law of physics, that P and T moves unto each other when K is constant. So what is the constant? That was what Gargi asked Yagnavalkya, and the idiotic patriarchal wise with horns and tail wagging, a Vedic tail wagging, didn't understand it. So Yagnavalkya is worshipped in the morning among the 7 great sages. And such a great sage was just an intellectual speculator, or his experience never went to the extent of completing the cosmic universe. Try to understand this. We are now checking up on the psychology from where a philosophy is evolved. What is the state of the psychology? Is the state of the realizer. This Gargi came down, is one of the lineage gurus of a matriarchal society or matriarchal spiritual lineage called Lalita. And the term Lalita means lucidity. The lucidity of cosmic evolution, the beauty of the cosmic evolution, the easiness of the flow of creation is a Lalita. Lalita herself is Brahman, but is not trying to wash off the differences, because the expansiveness itself is holding the differences. It is holding the differences of space and time in every moment, and thus it is in momentum. Does that make any sense to you? So when you take this realization, let's take it easy. It's just like that. Then the great pride of Brahman, knowledge of Brahman, just fuses like a pinprick in a big balloon. That happened to Yagnavalkya by Gargi. This Gargi is a pre-Tantra era yogini who, by question, asserted in the mind of Yagnavalkya the limit of his knowledge. Because Tantra's goal is the silence of mind, this substratum consciousness, the stillness, the nothingness on which the big expanse is happening. So now you can see how the big expanse is dissolving your ego, but not dissolving the sense of self as a witness consciousness. So in the Samadhi, a Brahma Samadhi or a Moksha Samadhi, you get Atma Jnana or self-wisdom. What is the self-wisdom? I'm basically not just this form, or not just I am called. I'm beyond my name and form, an expansive state, which is a luminous form, which is endlessly expanding. One who has found an end to this endlessness has gone to the state of not recognizing the self anymore. In the stillness of being, you cannot assert a self. You can neither reject a self. Because to assert a self, you need to intervene another self to witness this self. And there is no two there. And to reject this definition of self, also another viewpoint is needed to scrutinize that this is not self. Thus, the ultimate Vedanta, in my consideration, is a Ramana Maharshi's Brahma Sutra. Maharshi Raman is another great realizer of the last century from South India. He said one day when his disciples were debating too much, there is a self, there is not a self, this, that, what not. He said, in that state of onlyness of being, a self can neither be asserted nor be dejected. Because to assert or deject a secondary self is needed to be witnessed, or a secondary self is need to witness. Rupsaranji, you are understanding this. This is Pragya Paramita actually. So Pragya Paramita, Astasahasrika, is speaking of this sense of being and self-existence. That is why who is realizing it and carrying on, coursing in it. Why carrying on coursing in it? Because it's still expanding or still contracting. It has not ended up. That is why he's called or she is called a bodhisattva. Bodhi means realization, pure realization. But sattva is holding it, or an ego identity is still holding it. It's not free from the ego identity. That is why a bodhisattva's view of a Buddha is also an apprehension. Pragya Paramita says that. In the 29th chapter, Buddha says, Buddha refutes even the definition of a Buddha. Buddha refutes even the definition of a Tathagata. When he comes to the pure consciousness of everything with form and name within the consciousness of no name and no form. Tantra has seen this name and form, arising and dissolving of name and form, as prakriti. Pra is a prefix, means best, kriti means deed. The greatest of any deed, the great deed that's happening with the expansiveness is Brahman. A Brahman is the differences manifesting in the field of expansion, because the field of expansion is creating a difference in space and time every moment, and thus it is becoming Prakriti. So Tantra does not see Brahma and Prakriti as two. Tantra sees Brahma and Prakriti as one. And thus, Tantra can find the significance of life in Leela. That even the consciousness is free of all attributes and name and form, but it itself is created names and forms that will question about the consciousness itself. So it's all in the probability of the consciousness itself. So from wherever you start in consciousness, and wherever you end in consciousness. How much you have realized consciousness is your experience in between. So in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, or an alternative state, the stillness of being also gets lost. Because more you watch, the watching gets tired. The mind that is trying to continuously make duality of the watching, through the process of watching, the watched and the watcher gets lost. And when it gets lost, you are in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is the state of the living dead. But to acha,
আছি বাবা,
তো মুখটা একটু দেখাও, লজ্জা কি আছে?
না লজ্জা।
তাহলে এই যে আমাদের অস্তিত্ব বোধ, এই অস্তিত্ব বোধটা গাঢ় ঘুমে টিকছে না তো?
না।
তাহলে আমারই চেতনার রঙে পান্না হলো সবুজ, চুনি হয়ে উঠলো রাঙা, গোলাপের দিকে চেয়ে সুন্দর বললাম সুন্দর, সুন্দর হলো সে তুমি বলবে তত্ত্ব কথা, আমি বলবো না, কবির বাণী। কবি এরকম অনেক সুন্দর সুন্দর কথা বলে, মনে হয় তত্ত্ব কথা, কিন্তু তত্ত্ব কথা নয়। কারণ কবি বেশিক্ষণ একটা তত্ত্বে থাকতে জানে না বা পারে না, তাই বহু তত্ত্বের প্রকাশ করে নিজে এক সময় ঘেঁটে যায় তার মধ্যে। সেই জন্য সে খোঁজে নতুন 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 এক্সপ্রেশন, যার ভেতর দিয়ে সে তার সাফোকেশনটাকে শুধু প্রকাশ করে। যে ধ্যানী, তাকে কিছুদিন তার ভেতরের কবিটাকে চুপ করিয়ে বসিয়ে দিতে হবে। যে ধ্যানী, তাকে ধ্যান করতে হবে ওই কবি সত্তার। কবি সত্তাটিকে দেখো, দেখতে থাকো, দেখতে দেখতে দেখবে কোথায় কবি সত্তাটি হারিয়ে যাচ্ছে। যেখানে কবি সত্তাটি হারিয়ে যাচ্ছে সেখানেই সত্যটা আছে। সেই সত্যটাই কবি সত্তাকে প্রকাশ করেছে। ঈশোপনিষদে বলেছে, সকবির মনীষীর বাঁচা। So poet and a thinker, Monishi, and Kavi means poet. Both are realizers according to Upanishad. But their realization is part-time realization. Fleeting realization. This moment I thought this is the truth, and that expressed in my poem, and next moment my thought changes and I express differently. Various viewpoints of knowledge coming out. Love for knowledge is philosophy. So Kavi or a poet is a philosopher with a fleeting consciousness. It's not stable, has not found the ground in stillness yet. And a Manishi or a thinker is going on thinking about it. How many more thoughts came up? Thousands of viewpoints came up. It never ended. It's also a fleeting consciousness. It's not a stable consciousness. তাহলে তুমি বুঝতে পারবে আমি তোমার অত লিখতে না করি কেন। Don't get possessed by your own creation. The greatest suffering that God suffers is possession of his own creation. And he suffers so much that he becomes a limited human being as an avatar and comes to experience the grounded reality of this suffering and becomes a human being. Maybe in other planets he becomes something different. There can be ET avatars also. Pushma Ma will remember we went to see the movie Avatar. Yes, Kaustav, enjoyment being a human being and suffering being a human being is the same experience to me. Kaustav, you want to say anything about it? Kaustav has just written, Kaustav Delvidas in the chat has written, doesn't just suffer, God enjoys being a human being also. That means nowadays Kaustav is enjoying. When Kaustav will not enjoy, will get angry that he is not enjoying, that is the time I will ask, Kaustav, is God happy in you? Enjoying?
Even when I am angry, that is still Shiva's bhog. And he
If
enjoys
God has
drinking.
human
He enjoys
being,
drinking poison as much as he enjoys drinking
is
kheer.
it your mythological faith or experience?
Somewhere in between.
I will tell you something, a naughty story about the Gnostic faith, how it started. In the Abrahamic tradition, there is a great esoteric cult. From Kabbalah to Gnostic to Sufi. So when God was alone, God felt very lonely. This is the Kabbalistic, Gnostic, Sufi oral tradition teaching. And God felt so lonely that his heart created a mirror. Because when you are lonely, you are looking at yourself being something, not being nothing, being something. So that being something is reflecting. So the mirror has been created. Rupsharanji, this is also Pratyabhigya. Pratyabhigya of Kashmiri Shaivism is exactly the same. So God created a mirror. God didn't create it, God created out of God. Self-evolved a mirror from God's feeling of loneliness. And God saw his reflection there. What do you think God saw as his image? A very beautiful woman. And it is said God was tempted. So must be God was patriarch. Otherwise, he couldn't have been tempted by the beauty of a woman. When a woman sees her own beauty in the mirror, doesn't get tempted, that gets the sense of fulfillment. That is why when a woman decorates herself, a man takes it for granted that the decoration is for him. No, it's for herself. So this beautiful woman, as the reflection of God, is called Lilith. See, the term Lilith and the term Lalita in Tantra is so near to each other. And God got tempted. God separated Lilith from him. The Gnostics, the naughty Gnostics, call Lilith God's wife or the woman side of God. So the man side of God got afraid of the temptation of the woman side of God. This is like Brahman got tempted by Prakriti in itself. And from there, trouble started. So Lilith conceived the fear of God. Try to see the metaphor. Lilith conceived the fear of God, and conceiving God's grace in this separation, archangel of God, the first angel of God, Lucifer, was born in the womb of Lilith. And since then, God took greatest care and love for Lucifer. But Lucifer, being Lilith's son, is a revolutionary. Because God created the separation in himself with Lilith. So Gnostic will say If separation is the original sin, then God is the first sinner, because God separated Lilith. God separated his own son, Lucifer, from him, making him the king of hell. So where was hell when heaven was not there? So hell was in the mind of God. Just think about it. God's mind lives in hell time to time. Do you understand, Kostov, where God suffers?
Yes, Babaji.
God's mind lives in hell. Otherwise, how God would have created hell? Whatever is created is God's will. Let there be light, and there was light. So God thought Lilith is bad, and so there was bad. Right to Lilith, there was no bad. But the sense of bad came in God's own mind about his own reflection. Be aware of God. In many houses, there is written outside, be aware of dog. The dog takes a somersault, DOG becomes GOD. In my alertness, be aware of God. All these have come up from human mind, all these metaphors, all these stories, all these similes, because this is how the mind conceived good and bad. When I'm afraid of my own reflection, I call it bad. So everything I see bad in the world is exactly reflection of my own insecurity. Adesh. So because Lilith is not appreciated by God anymore, Lilith became mother of Satan, and Satan was also not appreciated because contest came. Contest started in the source by God, separating Lilith. And born out of Lilith, or born out of this separation or self-insecurity, is the archangel. From the archangel Lucifer to Satan, or the evil, is a flow of God's creation out of himself. Patriarchal gods, be aware. You can end up in your own self-created hell. So this polarization is called the wine in Gnostic faith. If you read Jalaluddin Rumi, there is a lot of drinking wine. So drinking wine is drinking polarization. So the chalice, or the conditioned consciousness in us, is holding the wine. The wine is the truth, brewed into an addiction of life, that the soul comes back again and again. Some soul recognizes it as suffering and wants salvation. Some souls recognize it as freedom and enjoys lives after lives in perfect realization. This is the difference of the soul of a Tathagata, who goes to the root of creation and comes back into creation, and moves to and fro, taking orders from this shore to that shore and that shore to this shore, because he has no choice of any shore. Both shores are equal to him, or her, or to it. Whereas one is holding on to the identity, is trying to reach an end. So end is the subconscious reality in the mind of a traveler. But when the traveler finds there is no end, then the traveler remains as a traveler. He's just called a homeless traveler, a Bohemian who doesn't want to reach anywhere, because he has reached the horizon that he saw in front of him here, that the realizer saw in front. It is under the feet now. He has gone around the earth and come back there, and nothing, and something else is the horizon now. It never ends. An absolute realizer takes it as a traveler's, homeless traveler's journey from lifetime to lifetime, adventuring in views of the same truth, which is knowledge. Some are so afraid of traveling and being homeless, they end up in a static nirvana where their soul dissolves into absolute consciousness and they don't come back to life. Tantra appreciates the one who wants to come back. Tantra says goodbye to the little ones who in salvation is dead. That is how the realizer of Tantra is called the zombie, Betala. Why? He's the living dead. His desires have died. And now the flow of cosmic nature, he has allowed his soul to float through, collecting no karma, making a room or house of no samskara, not getting characterized into any identity. And without desire, is not attending any karma. Everything he or she is seeing as cause and effect within time and space, action and reaction, everything in and within the same consciousness. Thus, the sense of same consciousness is so deep-rooted in that realizer that the realizer doesn't care about the changefulness, moreover, enjoys the changefulness. Adesh. This is where nirvana is samsara and samsara is nirvana. The reality of spirituality and the reality of the mundane are not two realities, but the same truth as it is. We have already passed 1.5 hours. In the great expanse, I was given 1 hour time to reach you all. Now here I end up my meaningless bullshit, just to feel that we are all not separated, even by the pandemic, coming here, seeing ourselves in a chessboard of boxes, running from one box to the another. I feel life like Harry Potter's entering the room of the chessboard. Once you are here, Lalita Ma, you have to combat with it. How you will combat with it is your problem. I will only entice you to play the game. But the game has a structure that we cannot come out of it. So we have to take our freedom within the structure. So more we know about the structure, more we experience the structure, more we feel the structure, we get grounded in our body, the structure which is holding my mind, my consciousness. This is yoga. The yoga is joining or conjoining or showing that mundane and spiritual are not two. It's the same one truth. So have the optimism of spirituality is no foreign thing that you are looking for in a foreigner's market, or an object to acquire. It is exactly where you are. This mundane life itself is spiritual. Witness it. Any question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, you're talking about will being brought about brings creation and then brings form. I'm just wondering, there's a lot of ideas that there is no free will, that we are locked in this structure of consciousness that you say, but that sort of goes against the whole idea of Sheel'a. That's something I'm struggling with that you're touching upon here, and how, like, obviously for experience, one understands that Sheel'a and choice is a reality, but still within the structure inherent in the universe, there doesn't seem to be any free will. It's just happening. It's basically the idea of free will.
Who is this speaking, please?
Graham from Australia.
Graham, right. Graham, Sheel'a is showing your limits. If you think you have transcended the limit, Sheel'a will show you your limit. The moment we feel guilty with any action or thought, the virtues come forth. Sheel'a are the virtues. Virtues show us our limitations. Thus, the Sahaja in Tibetan Buddhism is the Dzogchen Po,
Yes.
or one who is a Tathagata. The Sheel'a has dissolved. That is how the Sheel'a start from the Pancha Sheel'a or the 5 Sheela'as to 12 Sheela'as to 36 Sheela'as to 64 Sheela'as of a yogi, and then there is no Sheel'a. Why? Expansion and limitation.
So when you move beyond Sheel'a into Samadhi on the Eightfold Path, then...
Exactly. The Sheel'a is dissolving in the Samadhi. So long I have a home, I have a boundary and fence around the home. When I'm homeless, where is the boundary? Somebody has written, because it's privately, I will not speak the name, Baba, does Bohemian believe in structure that they want to be back. There's no question of getting back into the structure because you are moving in the structure. You are never out of the structure. When there is no structure, you are in the void. That is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And in that void, you do not know what is your experience. Only the effect of the experience works in you. Now, Arindam Mitra, your question comes there. It means Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the final stage of spiritualism. Yes, it's true. Brahma Samadhi is the start of spiritualism. And Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the completion of spiritual, if you call it spiritualism, or it is not any ism, the spiritual experience, Brahma Samadhi to Kaivalya Samadhi to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In between, there are many Samadhis. Many. Altogether, there are 84 Samadhis. From Savikalpa Samadhi to Brahma Samadhi to Kaivalya Samadhi to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Brahma Samadhi is the completion of Savikalpa Samadhi. Kaivalya Samadhi is the completion of Brahma Samadhi into Krishna Samadhi. These are all definitive terminology. Yes, Purushottam, through meditation, the moment we enter Samadhi, our past karmas starts getting dissolving. But habit of Samadhi can only end up all the karmas in a long process. Ananya has asked, structure means body or the cosmic structure? You are applying the word structure in meaning in body and cosmic views. Structure is structure. Anything that happens, it has a structure of space and time, cause and effect. Shubhamay puts the question, then is Nirvikalpa Samadhi is also within the structure of compilation? What do you mean by compilation, Shubhamay? I can't hear you, Shubhamay. What is meant by compilation? Completion. Completion. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the substratum consciousness, reaching you in the substratum consciousness, where all structure is taking place. The void of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in a part of itself, is self-evolving into a structure, which is the cosmic evolution. Is it clear or not clear?
This is a matter of experience only, otherwise cannot be cleared.
Absolutely. You are intelligent. So did you ask the question as unintelligent or as intelligent?
No, it came to my mind that this step-by-step samadhi is also falling into a structure. So
Of
samadhi
course, because samadhi is a state you are achieving. Once you have achieved the state, you will not see it as a state because you have become that. Now, because without that experience, you are apprehending or speculating that experience, as I said in the start, that my wisdom is becoming your information. And from there, the ignorance taking the form of knowledge is turmoiling your brain. This also can make your brain tired, and you can, for a moment, feel it. The moment you feel it, from there it starts. But if you practice the internal yogas, then there is absolutely technical step by step going into the space of samadhi. So it is also a structure. Because we are in differences, we are seeing it as a structure. Whereas when you are in samadhi, you don't find any structure there. You just find it as your being.
In Nirvikalpa, when I is completely lost, then who is going to see any structure or anything?
Nobody is going to see any structure. Logically not. But if I ask you, when one comes back from samadhi, how does someone come back from samadhi, from void to something? Can you answer that? Now your logic will not work, because it's no more a matter of speculation. It has to be a narration of experience, isn't it? Acha. Somebody has written, Vanibrata has asked a question, is not a desire not to come back? Vanibrata, I have taught you samadhi. Go into samadhi, and from the moment of return, keep up with your awareness and see, is it desired or not desired? Is it clear, Vanibrata? So Nirvikalpa Samadhi is beyond the structure of completion, but the structure can complete you. Be ready for Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Priyanka asks, do we attain all these samadhis over many lifetimes, or does it happen in one lifetime? It may happen in one lifetime. If you are that diligent and eager, it may not happen in many lifetimes if you don't have the eagerness for it. The eagerness will reach you there. In Sanskrit, it is called mumukshatya, the desire for salvation. How often a yogi goes through, how it feels when he comes back to materialistic world, it must be hard for him to survive. This is also speculation, dear. What to say? It's all coming from ignorance. If you have experienced it, you will know. But if you ask me, I have two answers, because I've taken a promise to answer. Samadhi, or a state, it's not stagnant, because the sense of stillness, until and unless you experience, you will see it from the mundane view and call it stagnant. Stagnant is something which is captivated and cannot flow out. But stillness is not something which is captivated or stored within a limit. It's liberation. So the stage of stillness, a yogi needs to go again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and come back to the materialistic world again and again to see the two ends of the polarization balancing in the yogi. It is not hard for the yogi to survive. Moreover, the yogi becomes more bold, more open, more free, and more losing insecurity. So the survival is not a question there, because in that stillness, the sense of survival, the yogi has seen getting lost again and again with his own identity. If you have lost your identity, how are you insecure about survival? But all this I'm talking, helping you in speculation, not realization. Because we are all talking, and talking is again a matter of knowledge. And matter of knowledge is always a bondage to experience or the realization of experience. Grame writes, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, absorption without self-consciousness, is a margins in the mental activity, chitta vritti, in the self, to such a degree or in such a way that the distinction, vikalpa, of knower, act of knowing, and object of known becomes dissolved. Yes, exactly, Graham. This is what it is. Partho says, you say poet possesses fleeting consciousness. What's about poets of Upanishad? Poet Joydev, are they not rishis that seeker? Of course they're rishis that seeker. But whatever you are speaking about cannot be enjoyed without duality. So if you follow the substratum of all Upanishad as Advaita, then with pondering in duality is not realization. Do you agree with it, Partha?
Yes, Baba.
Whatever is dual is ignorance according to Upanishad, because you are bringing Upanishad here. Then whatever is talked is duality. Yes or no?
Yes.
So whatever talked about duality is not wisdom but ignorance according to Vedanta. Yes or not?
Yes.
This is exactly the point that Dombipadacharya or the Chandala in Manikarnika treated Adi Shankaracharya a lesson, because everything is intellectual. Because Partho, you are identified in self-appreciation with your poetry, that what I spoke about poet and poetry is hurting for you. Where you are getting hurt, in duality or non-duality? Can you get hurt in non-duality? Is there a identity for you as a poet or not as a poet? So when you are saying, are the rishis or not seeker, it's a question in duality, because rishis are apart from you. You are distinctively differentiating between the questioner and the questioned. In the same narrow logic of your Vedanta, I am answering you what you understand. Is it clear?
Clear.
Priyanka says, Baba, what is the first practical step to take in order to attain Samadhi? What should I practice? What can I do? This is your restlessness, Priyanka. You have started something, carry it on. Samadhi is long ahead. Samadhi is the final outcome of your practices, where the duality and non-duality will merge into each other. There is neither a duality nor a non-duality, because the term non-duality of Upanishad Advaita is also presupposing duality and negating it. So if there is no duality at all, then why you presuppose it? And if you have presupposed it, that is already Advaita, then how do you kill it? Do you kill yourself? Your assertion itself is duality. Partho, do you understand this?
Yes, over.
So practice will come in the path, not so quickly. Yes? Sandipan is saying, I have been going through this phase of just forgetting and thinking nothing for some time, and then again banged by the materialistic reality of the practical world. Again, I'm back in suffering phase. Is this the two polarization? Yes, these two are two polarizations.
So, my question is,
Because samsara and the spiritual world is still different in your consciousness. So long it is different, you will suffer. This is how Advaita Vadin suffers. By refuting Dvaita, escapes Dvaita because takes it for granted that there is Dvaita. Without Dvaita, taking for granted, how do you refute Dvaita? And from there, holier than thou attitude comes in all Vedantis. This is my observation for 14 years of living with a Vedantist Guru. And in the Vedanta Mandali, experiencing how their personality works with their wisdom. The personality became more and more and more touchy, sensitive, and attributed to a speciality. Everybody saying, he's so special, we cannot imagine him. Okay, he's so special, but what about, he's speaking about the truth, which is nirvishesha, which is not special. So the not special has made him special, trapped in his own chaff. Thus, the separation itself, as the Gnostic faith says, if separation is a sin, then God should be responsible for this sin, because separation was created by God. So long you think God different to you, you are creating that separation. To search the God within in your state of being. And when God is settled in your consciousness, or you are settled in God consciousness, you will see the material life is just lila. Remember, Sandipan, I'm born and brought up in Calcutta, in that crowd, in that pollution, in a joint family, studying school, intermediate, college, law in Calcutta, and simultaneously endeavoring in my perfection of wisdom. And that one day broke out the cocoons, And my guru recognized me to be an Avadhuta. And he named me Satpurananda because my expression never differentiated from my experience. I never speak philosophy. I don't believe in philosophy. I'm speaking what I have experienced. My realization is myself talking and resolving the issues that are created in the way of thoughts, changing into thoughts, changing into thoughts, changing into thoughts. So the unchangefulness of the Samadhi, when it came and resided in my thought, I recognized my realization. It's a practice of perpetual Samadhi, continuous Samadhi. So either you go and pay more importance to spirituality, you will become subjective, which is also a misbalance. If you consider yourself to be suffering, you are in samsara, that is also a misbalance. Hold on to your both ends. You are seeing the same thing with two eyes. You are hearing the same sound with your two ears. You are breathing the same air through your two nostrils. You are holding one thing with your two hands. You are walking the same path with your two legs. Thus, duality is no disturbance to non-duality. What people call non-duality is the stillness in experience of Kaivalya Samadhi. And what people call duality is the changefulness. The changefulness and no change is happening at the same time in the same space, where the space and time factors are also dissolving. So when the void settles down in your life, then we call it voidness. It's not one extreme of the void experience. It's the experience of the void continued in life. But that void is not a sense of emptiness, sense of vacantness. It's a sense of fullness. The battery went off and the computer went into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. It has no vikalpa to present anything. It's not, I will end up today's discussion with a joke. There was a blind man and very poor man who have never tasted milk. And because he's blind, he does not understand what is white. So another poor man, his friend, was invited to take alms from a rich person's house and drank a lot of milk. And he also experienced for the first time what is milk. So he came to his friend running and said, "Friend, today I drank milk." And the friend said, "What is milk?" So he said, "It is a liquid which comes out from the cow." Oh, okay. How does it look like? How does it taste? It tastes like milk. How can I know how it tastes like? I have not tasted milk. So other said, "Oh, you have not tasted milk? I have tasted milk. Milk is white." I'm telling you what milk is. Milk is white, as white as the feathers of a crane. How is the feather? What is a crane, my friend? He's blind, he does not know. Crane is a bird that flies in the sky and have a long neck. Can you make me understand how it feels like? So the friend made the hand like this. In Bengali culture, we call it bok dekhano. Bengalis will enjoy this proverb. It's like this. So the blind man touched the hand. Oh, I understand. The milk is like this. So Shubhamoy, try to experience Samadhi through the practices. All the mental obstacles you create in the path of Samadhi through your desires stand against your Samadhi. And thus you remain speculating what is Samadhi. You can write volumes, but underneath all these volumes, you also have to write when you will be tired of explaining it through speculation, that it's not a matter of mind and speech, because your mind, you didn't see how it dissolves, and your speech didn't come out, shoot back from where everything dissolved. Tantra does not say it is not a matter of word and understanding. Tantra says how a word or expression comes from Samadhi when it comes down to the state of being, how you see yourself, the observation, pashyanti, from para, from beyond comprehension to experience of observation of the being. From there, it comes down, grossifies into mind as the polarization, and is called a madhyama, the truth in between two opposite and equal versions of binaries. If you go to South India, you will see all the gods and goddesses are under a aureole, and the top of the aureole is a demon. A demon is the boss of all Hindu gods and goddesses. Why? The demon is the binary. It is called Kitti Mukha. The ego strive, the bragging. I'm a great sadhu. Why? Because I have many signboards and hoarding boards printed with my name and my gospels and my picture. It's a matter of advertisement. I'm a very big sadhu because I have 100 acres of land and an ashram. It's all the duality and possession of desires that I am speaking against. I'm a great sadhu. I have many disciples, and everybody praises me. I was speaking of formless, nameless, nirvishesha. How did I acquire all these? To become a great sadhu? By my psychology of competitiveness and ambition, I've organized an artificial structure to present my ego identity. So unrealized cannot make another one realize. So name, frame, property, possession, ashram, these are all tanhas, trishnas, desires. You are fixed in desires and telling people how to get liberated. But life is not without desires. What do we do about it? When you will be able to balance this paradox, you are a realizer. Otherwise, you are a dharma practitioner, a religious being. You are not a realizer. If your identity is depending upon others, how they see you, then you have lost your heroism. It is better to go into zeroism, which is greater than heroism. So similarly, those who depend upon shastras and books to realize, they're blinds who has not tasted milk and sees the milk as this. What a great enterprise and endeavor carries on with this dharma, social, cultural, political climbing. Today, the dharma gurus of India are also speaking political motives, supporting political regimes, but cannot bring down the price of regular necessities and essential objects and commodities of life. A big short guru of this era, a devotee went to his ashram canteen and found one samosa costs 60 rupees. So he goes to the guru and says, Guruji, how is that one samosa is 60 rupees in the ashram when outside there's 10 rupees, 5 rupees samosas? The guru's answer is very short. Why are you going to the canteen? There is so much samosas in my room in the plate, eat from there. You are my special. You don't have to poke your nose into my business. You just be happy. Take the bribe of a free samosa that you don't put up a question of a 60 rupees samosa. Clear? I'm not speaking that dharma. I'm not a religionist. I'm very secular. What is my secularism? Spiritual oneness. I found out the common consciousness, the image of God, which is common in every human being, and thus I am a common man. I recognize I am that. And I'm trying to help you recognize you are also that. If all of you recognize yourself as the same consciousness, then we can have a good party one day. But if we are not in the same line of consciousness, then the partying will end up in beating each other. So the sharing of a realizer of his or her realization with everybody is a process of friendliness. It is a way of correlating. We are equals. You don't know? I know. We are equals away from our differences. Apart from our differences, and even with our differences, we are all equal in this pure consciousness. As much importance you give me on my differences with you, be it a good importance or a bad importance. But ultimately, the end of the game is making myself special or making yourself special. So someone may think, I have hold on such a big guru, I am more special than others. And thus they will praise their guru, not because they're happy with their guru. They're happy with their status being the disciple of that guru. Rashi, you can see it all around. So if anybody asks, who is your guru? You say, he is a meaningless person who's a homeless traveler. He has nothing in possession and he's not special. He's just a friend of ours who shares his wisdom with us, and we experience that. Don't say, my guru is such a big guru. Do you know how big? How big is your guru? Never. Then the reality of the guru, which is the balance between gu and ru, between nothing and everything, the black and white, will get broken. You are all who hold in your mind, as I am your guru, are children of the asylum. I am crazy. Be happy that you are all crazies. Hey, this is where we end up today. Joy Guru, Joy Guru, Joy Guru, Joy Guru, Joy Guru.
Jai Guru Baba.
Jai Guru Baba, Jai Guru Baba.
Thank you.